So to kick things off, again, welcome to the Career Composing Podcast. Our goal is helping you compose your career outlook in a refreshing way. This is our launch podcast that we are live streaming, and it is something we're just going to work through as far as the format. My heart's desire is to help people with some of the career challenges that they are facing. And so for those who are in attendance, I'd love to hear from you as far as what career challenges you're willing to share. Feel free to submit those via question and answer or through raising your hand. And then we can, if it's going to go through raising your hand, we will then unmute you and we can share you what you're facing verbally, and we can discuss as we go along. And while we wait for questions or comments that people have, I would just like to introduce more about myself. My name is Nathan Swanson. I have spent the last almost 20 years off and on working with small companies and help them grow and scale, especially in the talent perspective of recruiting. And as mentioned in my little mention in LinkedIn today, it is to, with the high unemployment that we are facing as a nation, it's really trying to see what challenges people are encountering and to see what help we can provide them. And whether it's encouragement or a new idea, or looking at what, and just as this podcast is named, their compositions, what compositions have they done through their career that they have and would like to share, so that we have, again, something to help them with. And I know, just to share a little testimony of my own, I have struggled immensely trying to figure out what kind of career I wanted to have. And since I didn't know what I wanted to do, I would go ahead and work at a variety of companies, and then that helped inform what I liked and didn't like. And as a result of that, I decided to, pursue more in the consulting realm. And throughout consulting, most of my career has been that in the last, I would say, 7 years. I then decided to start my own company, where I work with companies to teach them how to recruit and retain talent. And with the challenges that we have faced during this pandemic, it is now trying to see if there's anything that I've learned along the way, my team's learned along the way, that we could help encourage others during this really tough time. So as I'm trying to think of really things to share, I think one of the biggest challenges I think people face is trying to determine if what they are currently working on is what they should continue working on. Whether it's, even if it's a temp job, if it's a permanent job that they've had for quite a bit, they may be thinking about, what should I do going forward? I think part of the challenge that those who are currently employed have is this something they really enjoy and they feel, I don't know if calling is the term for that component, but really, what do they really want to do? And I find that there is this connecting of the dots that occurs throughout a person's career that you may not know what it looks like when you're 20 or 30 per se. It could be when you're younger, in the 20s maybe after some experience, you realize, hey, this is actually what I'm trying to pursue. And one thing to consider is really kind of noting down what you like about the job, what you don't like about the job, and other jobs you may have had, and kind of start doing an inventory of sorts on how your career has been composed of so far. And so I have a question here from from someone listening that shares that they are a 55-year-old who has moved to a new state. They have very little in the field of their expertise in the area. So they found work in a different field. They're not thrilled with it and want to get into the other field that I don't have much experience with. Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Is this, would you like to talk about this, or would the preference be to have me work through this? Because I'd love to hear more context, but I also know that some people may not want to verbally go through this while on air. Okay, they prefer the chat, which is great. All right, so as you mentioned, you moved to a new state. So there's already a challenge that you're encountering with your comfort level, maybe. In addition to that, where you may not have grown up in the area that way or geography that way, you, as mentioned, had this amount of experience up to that point in a certain field that got you up to this point of your career, but because of either the job market there or because of other factors, you were unable to go into that field or continue in that field. And as a result of that, it sounds like you may have received or experienced some frustration or something like that, per your mentioning you're not thrilled with. And so you were doing that work, you're not thrilled with what you're currently doing because you couldn't find something that was in your kind of your experience, the realm of experience. And so you want to get into another field that you don't have experience with, but it's one that you want to pursue. And so I think there'd be a number of things here. And so you're mentioning that would be a pre-retirement move to new state. You don't need high pay. I think, okay. And so you mentioned here that something that's fueled by passions. Can you share, let's say, the top 2 or 3 things that really you feel passionate about or driven about? And while that person's entering that information to continue kind of articulating this, what this person is sharing is that they're open to some unknowns because it would be a field that, again, they don't have a lot of experience in, so they have to, as a result, learn to go into that field in some capacity. And so you're passionate about, you were sharing what kind of manufacturing or the type of manufacturer they are, the company. Is there a certain work arena? Would this be in retail, or is the new field retail, or is it in IT? Oh, it's in engineering. Okay. So are people in this engineering field usually required to have some educational background? Or is it that it's okay, so you do have the education in engineering. You also mentioned that you have other interests in firearms and in boats. Is the engineering field that you want to get into, you have the education for it, but you've never pursued that before? Okay. And so this would be somewhat of a kind of circling back to what you may have started your career in, but went a different direction and now are wanting to get back into, well, not get back into, but really want to. Okay. So they say exactly. All right. So what I have a few questions in addition to the ones I've already asked that to kind of narrow this down. And so the field of engineering are the firms that provide this. Let me back up. So you've moved to a new state, they don't have what you have been working in. And this new state, you have picked up work that you're not thrilled with. Is Are there firms or organizations that have the engineering jobs you would like that are currently in your new location? Okay. And would you say there's more than 5 companies that have these engineers? Okay. Would you say there's two? Okay, 2 to 3. All right. So there's a few ways to look at this. One is that I've met a number of people. Let me share some anecdotes before I jump into answering this question and provide more context. There are people that when they graduate with an undergrad or graduate, or they didn't go to college, but they had a lot of experience in some type of certificate program or something like that. They then they either lost interest in it and they wanted to pursue something else because maybe it had higher pay, but it wasn't as passionate. And so I feel that even though they may have not had direct experience in that field that they originally had pursued and were now pursuing something different, I think there's elements that may still play into that. So it may not be pure engineering experience that you can share on your LinkedIn profile and your resume, but there's elements that I think you can speak to on that. I think one way of looking at this is looking at the top. So you said there are 2 or 3 firms that have the engineering role that you're looking for. Is there one in particular that you're drawn to as far as a company? It could be their mission. It could be the way they treat their employees. It could be just the way they articulate various postings on their website. Is there a firm that you're of those 2 or 3 that you're drawn to? Okay. So they said they were. Um, do they currently have job postings that are in the engineering role, but they don't have the junior level engineering that they're recruiting for? It's just the people who are mid level. Okay, so okay, so this person's added, they don't have openings in engineering at this time, and they have tried to pursue one that was really interesting, and they were open to really doing anything, not just engineering, for this one firm. And so my follow-on question, since you have tried, is that um, did you formally interview with them? Okay, and so and so the they feel I'm overqualified. Okay, and won't stay. And you mentioned one more caveat, that you don't need the money. So it's really that you have a joy or something where you get fulfilled by doing this work, or that you would anticipate getting that joy fulfilling this work. Hmm. How far did you get in the interview process with them? Was it at the final offer, or was it right before the final offer where they said, you know what, we really appreciate your interest, but that we really don't, we feel that you're overqualified? Was overqualification your mind? Or spoke to one person shy of the owner? Okay. And where's they actually said overqualification? Okay. And it wasn't your overqualification in the engineering capacity. It was just overqualification in your general career experience. Okay. Um, so they mentioned that they think it was both overqualification for the engineering realm, and then also overqualification due to their career experience, going up into that. So my question then is, do you feel there was anything about pay that during the negotiations, if you got to negotiations, where they may have shared that they couldn't pay you a certain level? Okay. It was a cold call. And so has there only been, how many conversations have you had with this company? Was it that one? 4. And did you talk with someone in HR at different levels? Hmm. And how long ago was this? Was it in the last 6 months or last year? Almost a year ago, and that it was a small company. Um, do you feel that the person that you interviewed with in the final stage, it sounds like you talked one person prior to the owner, do you feel that they may have been intimidated by you in a way that they felt that they were that you would surpass them when you start because of the experience that you have? Did you get that kind of feeling or sense? A little bit. Okay. Hmm. Would you be willing to reach back out to them? So, like, if to rephrase, if after this conversation and you had more, would you have more interest in talking with them again? Would that be something you're open to, or has this ship sailed per se? Okay, so you'd be open to reaching back out to them. Um, and and just one more clarifying question: how many other people in engineering, which I know that they don't have the position open for engineering, but how many people are in that position currently that you're aware of? 5 to 6 other engineers or so. Okay. So one thing I try to encourage those who are looking for, I don't know if you want to call it a dream job, but something, something close to that, or one at least that you're passionate about, is to do a lot of research on the firm, which you may already have in this case, and then write up an email and then craft it some way saying, I've really wanted to work at a company like this. I've done my homework and research where I feel I could really provide a lot of value at this company, and share the reasons why you would believe that. And then acknowledge that they're currently not hiring for this role. You had previously tried to pursue it about a year ago, but keep on coming back to them because of, again, their mission values, or however, whatever seems to draw you in. And then just say, I'd love to talk with the owner, just more about the company, and that I know that there's no current role posted for it, but I'd still like to have that opportunity to talk with them. And so I'm not saying quote that exact phrasing, but it's more of on the receiving end of that. When I work with CEOs on helping them with hiring candidates, there are times where I will encourage what I call courtesy interviews. And it's ones you may not be actively looking for at the time. It may be ones that may not be as qualified, or in this case, maybe overqualified, but it's still because the person reached out, they provided this custom letter, they crafted in a way that is, it's great to hear from as a business owner, especially where someone's really interested and drawn to my company, and just even having that conversation could be really beneficial. And so, as you mentioned here in this latest message, that there has been some of a wall to get to the owner, that can certainly be challenging, especially since there are owners that will have people kind of built around them to kind of help them. Well, they'll delegate various tasks to, and they'll want people to filter their incoming messages or things so that they can focus on running the business, because it could be, they could be working 60 to 70 hours a week, and they need to have other people do that. So to your point, you did not make it to the owner in the last interview process because of this kind of wall of people around him or them. And I would, I don't know if those people are still there. They could have moved on, the people who were that wall. I think it's worth giving another shot. It doesn't mean that it will work, but I think it's something that you can pursue, and that, a lot can happen in 12 months. And certainly a lot has happened in the last, since this pandemic started. So who knows what it's like now there. And they may need someone that has your, in their words, overqualifications to really help them, go through this incredible storm that we're encountering. So that would be my encouragement, is that, based on what you shared with me, as much as, I don't want you to potentially get rejected a second time, but it's kind of like you stepped up to the plate and you swung for the fences and it didn't work out. So I think just encourage you to get back up to the plate, using the baseball analogy, and try it again, and to see if something connects. And there could be an element where it may not work, but maybe someone puts you in touch with someone else in the field that may be a company that's more of a better fit. And just to circle back on the comment that there were 2 to 3 companies in your geography. This is the one that you've pursued in the past, and the one that you're saying you're willing to try again. The other 2, I would still examine them, and to see if that's something that maybe an opportunity also. I don't know how big this geography you're in. If it's a smaller town, you have a lot of people who may know people who know people for the last 20 years. I remember when I've moved to smaller locations, I work out of Charlottesville, Virginia, and it took a long time to really network and talk with people and understand more about the various companies. And so, again, I don't know how small or big your geography is, but just you even looking at other firms simultaneously. And so I think your words are still honest where you're saying that you feel they're a great company, you still like to work with them. And for the other two companies, I would consider reaching out to them too. And in your kind of preamble to them, to share that you feel they're one of the top companies locally and that you would really be interested in talking further about this. They're not currently hiring. And just change it slightly for them. But I think you pursuing potentially all three in parallel and kind of seeing where it goes. I think it's certainly worth it. And if you get 3 no's, you get 3 no's, but at least you now have that clarity and can pursue something where you do this independently. I don't know if you want to start your own firm or, become an independent consultant, but that is certainly an option. So I appreciate you sharing that and being transparent with the podcast. And again, thanks so much. And so with that, I wanted to, again, open up to anyone else that wants to share questions. But if not, I think that we could wrap things up for episode 1 of the Career Composing Podcast. I really appreciate everyone being on this. And with that, have a great day.